I think there's a variety of experience here. Like someone like you, Evan, you've been through this cycle now 8 times with Horror Story. And Alex, obviously this is new, and the Alienist took so long to finally wind up in this format. Why do you think limited was the way that all these stories needed to be told? And what are the advantages over, let's say, like The Alienist was supposed to be a theatrical feature at one point. And I know that you have the mechanism of Horror Story, and Alex, this story could have easily been feature as well. So why limited?
Well, for us, I guess, if you go back to the beginning when the book came out 25 years ago, they bought the rights and spent 10 years trying to make it into a feature. And they sort of failed at it because it's such a immersive book. It's so layered that it would often, the scripts would go on a tangent and miss other parts of the story. So they stopped and held off. And then, 25 years later, they worked out that it would be better as a episodical limited series where we were able to tell the whole story, the whole book within 10 episodes. And I think it worked. I mean, I think the book is, it's so complex and there's so many characters, and the 10 hours actually is what it deserved. And you feel like if it had been done in 2, it probably would have missed an awful lot of the magic that the story, now has because it's in this format.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that so much of it would have been glossed over and lost. And I feel like, all of the, not just the lead characters, but also the supporting characters who are brilliant and brilliant actors playing them, you really get to know them as well as fully as possible. And I just, I feel like it would have done a disservice to this story that there are so many fans of to kind of cut it short. So I'm thrilled that it found its home.
For Dakota, I know you talked about this sort of how The Alienist kind of died in feature development for a long time, and then Cary Fukunaga, who obviously is incredible, sort of sketched out this whole season for you, and last minute I know couldn't come and direct any of them, but still as an executive producer. Huge investment from TNT. Did you guys feel any pressure and that you want to share?
No, not pressure. It was more everyone from the very beginning. I met Jakob Verbruggen, who directed the first 3 episodes and who was kind of the lead director. He's an executive producer. I met him initially to talk about it when I was, reading the scripts and being asked to be a part of it. And I think when I saw of course, the investment from TNT and Paramount TV, but also from the individuals on working in all the departments, the costume designer, Michael Kaplan, and the production designer, Mara Lepere-Schloop. Everyone was so focused on making this as realistic and cinematic as possible. And I just could feel that even from that first meeting with Jakob, and then we filmed in Budapest, Hungary, and getting there and seeing the sets in real life and seeing the costumes and seeing the energy and time that every single person was putting into making the story what I think that it is was really exciting. I didn't feel any pressure. I associate with a negative feeling, and I really didn't. So I didn't feel that. I just felt excitement, and also it was interesting. We had to go to the upfronts last year in May. We'd been filming since March, so we kind of got ripped out of our alienist world and went to the upfronts, and like the last thing that they showed was this trailer they had put together of like the things that we had been shooting like 2 days before. And it was definitely a big build-up at the upfronts to the presenting the Alienist. And so we kind of looked at each other like, okay, like it's like, everyone's taking this very seriously and expecting a lot out of it. But I think that everybody individually was expecting a lot out of themselves and really pushing themselves to, and I don't just mean the actors, I think everyone was really pushing themselves to do their best. And everyone who visited could feel that immediately. It was just, everyone was striving to make it great. And maybe that's because it was such a long build up to getting it made. Doing it justice was really important to everybody.
Just want to repeat that.
Said it all.
Can you talk a little bit about your dynamic as characters? I think they're both really interesting in proving they have nothing to prove in respective ways, and sort of part of a toxic love trial. Daniel Bruhl, obviously, we should mention, is a big part of the show.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Who? I only
not
see
here.
2 Alienist stars. So.
This is about us tonight.
So do tell us.
It's called The Illustrator tonight. Well, actually, I think my character has a lot to prove to himself mostly, and which is probably what sort of drew me to the role in the first place. Was this man who's, he's a bit of a broken soul. He's a highly functioning alcoholic, suffering with addiction, with grief, losing his brother, estranged from his father, living with his grandmother, not having a job. Never had to have a job. He's brought up in quite a upper class background, but really not having a purpose in life, and he's sort of just floating through life. And so it was quite interesting to see the growth of this man, and how much he had to prove, and how much he was having to face his demons throughout the 10 episodes by the help of Sarah Howard, Dakota's character, and Laszlo Kreisler, and also himself, which is a really interesting thing to do. He had to hold the mirror up to himself, which was a very hard thing to do when you've got so many demons, that you carry around on a daily basis. So there's a lot of humanity about John Moore, which I loved, and that's sort of what I sort of drew on constantly in each episode.
I think as for the dynamic between our characters, it's established very early on that they are old family friends and have been in each other's lives for quite some time. And so I think what's really beautiful about their relationship that we see kind of unfold over the 10 episodes is Sarah in particular, because she's a woman in a man's world, and having to portray strength and toughness on the outside even when she doesn't feel that way on the inside, out of fear of being seen as weak by other people. What we do get to see is her vulnerability and fear and pain come out around John Moore, because there's that safety net of the years that they've known one another. And so it's kind of a safe person for her to open up to and admit weakness to, even though it's not really weakness, but you know what I mean. And so I think I really loved that part of the series, and those scenes were really sweet and special and fun to film.
And just to talk about Daniel Bruhl, just for a second, but he's getting a little moment. He is the man he's the character that draws my character into this storyline, and also draws Sarah Howard into this group, this very unlikely group of people that come from very different walks of life. And he is sort of the thread that pulls us together, and sometimes the thread that pulls us apart at the same time. It's not a quintessential, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson dynamic at all, which is what makes it so interesting for the audience, is that, you're thinking it's all working out and they're going to find the killer, and then you realize that these people are so messed up, they have so many things going on in their own worlds, that they're nowhere near working this out as a team, and they find their way, which I think is the compelling part of the story. It's not actually just about finding a serial killer. It's about the main characters and how they find a way through this terrible, dark subject matter.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll send that to Daniel. Obviously, it's a longer experience than something like regular episodic, but maybe not as grueling as a film. Do you all have interest in, I think that you might have deals and stuff that you're already doing, but do you have interest in staying in the medium? Or do you now want to just go and do a 3-month indie and go to Saint-Tropez or something?
As a person, I crave routine and order and structure, and I'm in completely the wrong profession for that, because you can't predict anything, and you don't, it's completely unstable all the time. So for me, knowing what I was working on, where I was going to be for a near 7-month period was like relief. I really liked that a lot. So for that reason, I'd love to. I'd love to do something for that length of time. It's just it's such a luxury to kind of get to take a break from your life, you know, and deep dive into a creative experience in the way that we got to filming The Alienist. And that kind of fortune wasn't lost on me. I think I really embraced it. It was a real adventure and really a growing experience for me as a person, just to live in a country so far away from home with kind of no friends or family, making completely new friends who I can't imagine my life without. It was just a really great experience. And then professionally, it was so exciting to, get to keep telling the story of a character for longer than I'm used to. It was exciting to get a new script and see what was going to happen to her, you know, and make sure I felt like I was going to be able to do that as an actor. You know, usually you get to read a script and be like, okay, I feel good about that on a film, you know, and this, like, I feel like I can do that, you know, maybe, hopefully. And this, I only had the first 3 scripts when I said yes. So I would have been screwed if in episode 8 I was like, I can't do that, you know.
Evan's shaking his head like I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's terrifying.
It's scary.
Yeah.
I feel like script delivery is a treat for all of you but Evan. You're like, Xanax at 8 a.m. And I think that there's some talk that you might come back. You can just share that with me and my friends here.
We have no idea.
No idea? No. Would you be into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would be so into it. I think it's nice that there is a satisfying beginning, middle, and end to the series, and we tell the story of the book, The Alienist, start to finish, and I think that that's nice for people to know and to get to hopefully be satisfied at the end. But if there was an opportunity to tell more of the story, I think can speak for Mr. Brule too. He'd be excited. We'd all be excited.
Yeah, we would.